Welcome to Spiritual Foundations for Life. This is day number 298. Pharaoh of Egypt was not willing to let God's people go. And so the Lord sent one plague after another upon the land. It is interesting to note that Pharaoh hardened his own heart several times. And then eventually God himself hardened Pharaoh's heart according to Exodus chapter 9 verse 12. See, Pharaoh likely could have turned his heart to God at one time, but ultimately he got to a place where he no longer could. This continual hardening of our own hearts will lead to a depraved mind, a mind that's devoid of conscience, and that will lead to extreme depravity according to Romans chapter 1, verses 28 to 32. Shocking verses, check them out. It wasn't until the 10th plague that Pharaoh finally relented and let God's people go, according to Exodus chapter 12, verse 31, but he never repented. At first, Pharaoh had summoned his magicians and sorcerers, and they, by their secret arts, were able to mimic what Moses had done, according to Exodus chapter 7, verse 11, and verse 22, and chapter 8, verse 7. But then, according to Exodus chapter 8, verses 18 and 19, when the magicians tried to produce gnats by their secret arts, they could not. The magicians then went to Pharaoh and said to him, "This is the finger of God." See, the magicians' powers could only go so far. They could mimic what Moses did until God created gnats out of dust. See, Satan has no power to create. He has only power to copy. And so the rest of the plagues went unmatched. The magicians knew it was the finger of God because they couldn't counterfeit what God was doing. Similar spiritual counterfeiters will continue throughout the church age, ending with the terrible times in the last days, according to 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 8 says, "Just as Jannes and Jambres opposed Moses, so also these teachers oppose the truth. They are men of depraved minds, who, as far as the faith is concerned, are rejected." The magic of the sorcerers practiced in the Old Testament is not the same as the entertaining tricks that our modern magicians do. Magicians who seek to entertain us have the ability to create illusions by using clever tricks and the sleight of their hands. Well, in a similar way, some psychics are really only doing what's known as cold readings. These clever deceivers ask the naive people a few leading questions and then pretend, based on what they concluded, to give a reading. They observe their client's speech and mannerisms and appearance and their dress, and based on these observations, these psychics create general statements that can appear to be accurate. The gullible are so impressed with the accuracy of their revelations that they start giving more information, which these deceivers then use and fabricate into a reading. This is not demonic, this is just verbal trickery. However, it does reveal just how easy it is for people to be deceived. The mediums and spiritists who God spoke against in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, and even today, were not con artists, but they were people who possessed real spiritual power. They were channels for the demonic, and they knew in their own ranks who the true psychics were. Today, while the deceivers with their phony cold readings are only interested in cheating us out of some money, there are true mediums and spiritists who want to enslave us and expand the control of Satan. The evil one will also counterfeit many of the spiritual gifts that God has given to the church. This is especially true of the gifts of tongues and prophecy, which are reported in false religions and in cults around the world. As 1 John chapter 4 verse 1 says, "Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." Our key point today is that Satan seeks to counterfeit the spiritual gifts that God has given to the church. And our key verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 14 verses 39 and 40, "Therefore, my brothers and sisters, be eager to prophesy, and do not forbids speaking in tongues, but everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. God bless you. See you tomorrow for another episode of Spiritual Foundations for Life.